happening in politics and in
Broadcasting from Now Media Network's headquarters in Houston, this is Purple Politics, hosted by political expert and commentator Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. Join us to discuss the most important issues affecting our nation with fresh, balanced, and objective discussion on the first bilingual media network in the United States. Purple Politics starts right now.
Welcome back to another episode of Purple Politics. I am your hostess, Alina Gonzalez-Dockery, and from Alabama to back on the election campaign trail, we have a lot to cover. Alabama Supreme Court declares frozen embryos as children, casting shadow on fertility treatment. The Alabama Supreme Court's recent ruling, which considers frozen embryos as children, has stirred significant controversy within the realm of reproductive medicine. This decision has profound implications not only for fertility care within Alabama, but also raises complex legal questions with broader ramifications. The ruling challenges established practices in reproductive medicine, potentially altering the landscape for individuals seeking assisted reproductive technologies like in vitro fertilization. This ruling has drawn severe criticism from various quarters, including the White House, where it is seen as contributing to the erosion of reproductive rights, particularly in the wake of Roe v. Wade. Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, expressed concerns about the chaos resulting from such decisions, emphasizing the need for federal protections for reproductive rights. This ruling's alignment with anti-abortion language in the state constitution adds to the contentious nature of the debate. Legal experts and fertility specialists have raised alarms about the ruling's far-reaching consequences. By equating frozen embryos with unborn children under the law, the decision disrupts established medical practices and creates uncertainty around the legality of IVF procedures involving embryo freezing. This uncertainty extends to potential legal liabilities for medical practitioners and patients alike, further complicating an already emotionally, financially taxing process for individuals Let's face it, it's not individuals. I am sorry. I am a woman who has gone through the IVF process. This is further deteriorating. This is further stripping the rights for women to have autonomy over our bodies. But now it is affecting the potential for what was once seen as a miraculous treatment for women with infertility problems to be able to have a chance to have pregnancies and to then give life. But by doing this, all this Supreme Court justice, which the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court was quoting biblical, saying that conception is life. But yet, this goes beyond a heartbeat monitor. This goes beyond the fact that with life, there must be breath. And an embryo at this stage is not life. It is the potential of life. But this is further deteriorating the rights of women. And I understand you all are going to say, well, this isn't very purple of you because, what about those that are non-binary or transgender? The bottom line is this is the biological female. And it's furthering a very emotionally taxing time for a couple or for a woman to be able to have children. Because I can assure you, this isn't just, we have embryos, let's implant them and we get pregnant. It is a long, physically, emotionally, psychologically taxing procedure. And now we are furthering the fear for women to be able to go and have reproductive rights, to be able to go and get the best care. As one of the big fallouts from this Supreme Court ruling in Alabama, the University of Alabama at Birmingham's health system announced on Wednesday that it was pausing in vitro fertilization treatments as it evaluated this Supreme Court's rulings that frozen embryos should be considered children. The health system expressed sadness over the impact on patients attempting to have a baby through IVF, but emphasized the need to assess the potential legal risk for patients and physicians following standard IVF treatment protocols. The health system's Division of Reproductive Endocrinology and Infertility will continue performing egg retrievals from women seeking fertility treatment, but it will not proceed with fertilization and embryo development for now. The statement clarified that procedures involving egg fertilization and embryo development are on hold, including embryo implantation, the final stage of a very long IVF process. UAB's decision comes just 5 days after the Alabama Supreme Court issues its ruling, stating that frozen embryos and test tubes should be considered children. This ruling stemmed from appeals cases where couples' embryos were destroyed in 2020 when a hospital patient removed them from tanks of liquid nitrogen in Mobile, Alabama. The ruling referenced anti-abortion language in Alabama's Constitution and a law from 1872 allowing parents to sue for the wrongful death of a minor child, applying it to unborn children without exception for extrauterine children. The ruling has sparked concern in the field of reproductive medicine, rightfully so, with infertility specialists and legal experts assessing its potential effects on access to IVF and other fertility treatments. But not only in Alabama, this is going to far reach to those states, particularly those states that are extremely conservative that have already, like Texas, banned the right to an abortion, that have basically stated that conception is life. This is now furthering the inaccess, the accessibility of proper fertility care for a woman. I can tell you that though it's been some time ago that I went through the painstaking process of IVF, the painstaking steroids and medications and hormones that strained my marriage, that strained my ability as, to even just continue to have hope. But to think that if I were going through that today and potentially not being able to then further, as I am going through this process, then not be able to go the full gamut, to be able to have that embryo transfer because of liability and possible criminal ramifications. This is not progress. This is why, yes, we need Congress to man up, if you will, or woman up, and say that we need to have certain safeguards in place. Other Western countries do have limits to the right to terminate a pregnancy, but IVF is not about terminating a pregnancy. IVF is giving hope to women who are infertile in being able to have a child. And yes, I know the Catholic Church has, their outlooks against IVF, but this is furthering the degradation of women's rights in America. And I call for the Congress, for congressional members, both on the right and on the left, and especially those that are centrist, to get together and figure out something. Because what we are seeing is now we're going back to the 1800s at this point. And as a woman, as a leader in her community, I assure you, I will be very vocal. So yes, we're supposed to be purple politics. Yes, it's about common sense in the media as well as in politics, but this should be more. I expect so much more. And as a lawyer, yes, absolutely. This ruling was just a slap in the face, because regardless what the Chief Justice especially put in their personal religious beliefs into this ruling, which is now furthering what potentially could occur in families who struggle with fertility to no fault of their own, or even those that are using surrogates. It is time. France has a limit on abortions of 12 weeks. England has 15 weeks. Maybe it is time that we have a federal law that allows and protects the right to choose. It is not a right to an abortion. It's a right to choose. It's a right for women, biological females, to be able to have autonomy over their bodies and to have proper health care. Go back and look at the tapes and interviews of those Supreme Court justices when they ruled on Roe v. Wade. Look at the potential impact it has on female health. And now we're having a direct affront, a direct attack on the ability to have access to fertility medical care. This is absolutely ridiculous. And what happens, let's say, in the case that someone decides that the embryo doesn't take place, or the embryo does not survive or grows beyond the zygote period to be able to be implanted? If a parent or a doctor foresees that certain embryos are not viable to be implanted and thus will be, allowed to run its course, well, then there'll be criminal ramifications. I mean, this opens such a Pandora's box. And once again, this is just such a backward step for America. This is a backward step for women. This is no better than the Biden administration's education department trying to revoke Title IX, which allowed women equal rights to scholarships and to college education and such. All for what? This is all grandstanding, and both extreme sides need to be pulled in. So I am imploring my audience, let's get back to common sense and figure out how we can actually focus our efforts to promote well-being, both in women, children, and families, but also promote what is common sense. And that common sense is that we have a lot bigger issues that need our attention than determining whether or not a woman has a right now to fertility treatment. I am Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we are going to talk about all things campaigns. I'll be right back.
Hi, folks. Robert Quigley here, America's Independent, Washington, D.C., run the road to the White House. Folks, the status quo has failed us. We will increase home ownership to the 80% range. We will repair the climate. We will enact Quigley Care. We will increase your Social Security check. We will lower your taxes. We will reset student loan discharges. We will feed the 25% of our kids that go hungry every day. We will recreate 30 million new business owners. We will reshore America's squandered production might. We will lower your taxes. Your help, support, and dollars are needed. Pull up your sleeves. It's time to get to work. Go to robertquigleyforpresident.com, find the donor box button. Team America needs your spare change. Together, we will make it work for all of us.
Paid for and approved by the Robert Quigley for President campaign.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Well, here's a great idea. Donate your car now to help local veterans in your area. Yes, just make one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program. Within a few days, we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate any car in any condition. We'll use our vast network to sell it. The proceeds raised go to help local veterans and their families. And you get a tax deduction. And all you need to do is make this free call. Clean your yard up, get rid of an old car, and help the vets. We make it easy. Make this free call now. Book your fast and easy pickup. Call the Veteran Car Donation Program now.
Hello and welcome back. For those of you just joining me, we just had I was rather emotional about my last segment as to the Alabama Supreme Court ruling and the ramifications to those undergoing a very stressful and strenuously physically and emotional time in going through the IVF process. My heart goes out to those patients who are now put on hold after going through sometimes months and even years of treatment. And I pray that you will get some relief, if not find other locations to be able to conclude your IVF treatments. But now, from Alabama Supreme Court to South Carolina primaries. And here we have former Republican primary candidate, Senator Tim Scott, who is upholding Trump's rhetoric and condemning personal attacks. Senator Tim Scott, who went on the election campaign road, was all about loving America and about peace and calmness. And he just wanted to portray a really positive outlook. Well, I guess, the saying of who you associate with will eventually form your character. Well, he has definitely put up a switch, because Senator Tim Scott is not only a major supporter and endorser of Donald J. Trump, he is defending all of Trump's contentious remarks and name-calling of his rival, Nikki Haley, ahead of the South Carolina primary, which will be this Saturday, February 25th. Scott criticized attacks from Haley supporters, including her son, Nayland, who referred to Scott as Senator Judas, a term implying betrayal due to Scott's endorsement of Trump after dropping out of Republican primary. Scott addressed the insults against him while also defending Trump's attacks on Haley, including promoting a racist conspiracy theory about her citizenship and derogatory remarks about her intelligence and marriage. Let's remind the viewers, Trump and all of his cronies are now calling and have been calling Nikki Haley bird brain, a very misogynistic, derogatory term to a woman, reflecting back to the time of even Archie Bunker shows of calling wives ditzy, dimwit, bird brain, things like that. This is not something that you should be proud of. And even Trump gives backhanded slights to Tim Scott, which I get it. Tim is hoping he'll get the vice presidential candidacy. But, even Trump is joking around saying that Tim Scott did a horrible job on the campaign trail for himself, but now is doing great, is better at the campaign trail for Trump. But to continue these conspiracy theories, to state that if you are a U.S.-born child to immigrant parents who are not citizens, you are not a U.S. citizen, which is, by the way, false. False. No other way of saying it. So once again, the Trump campaign and the rhetoric stating falsehoods. The speculation arose about Scott potentially being considered as Trump's running mate after endorsing him and appearing alongside him on the campaign trail. He has also recently been at Trump's side at the town hall meeting that was recently aired on Fox News, as well as fundraisers for President Trump. Now, the reason why Nayland, Nikki Haley's son, is calling him Judas is because the relationship between Scott and Haley used to be very close. And it has deteriorated as they entered the presidential race and attacked each other during debates, even though the attacks weren't severe, to say the least. Haley viewed Scott's endorsement of Trump as a betrayal, claiming she was blindsided by it despite Scott's assertion that he had informed her beforehand. Scott would not be a senator but for Nikki Haley. See, when Nikki was governor of South Carolina, she appointed Tim Scott to his current senatorial seat, which he has since then won re-election. Mutual supporters and donors of Scott and Haley became divided as they entered the presidential race, further straining their personal relationship. Scott now faces hostility from Haley's camp, with his name drawing boos and hisses at her campaign events, reflecting the animosity between the two factions within South Carolina politics. But the real issue, or the real question, is Scott, who is seen as a good guy, clean, really was very, very respectful on his electoral campaign journey. If he's going to continue to get mired down by the tar pit, which is Trump's campaign, which always spouts vitriolic rhetoric, name calling, stating untruth rumors, which even, let's recall, he was attacking DeSantis even before DeSantis threw his name in the hat, and implicating rumors that he was a pedophile and such. I mean, is this really what, a guy who's supposed to be God-fearing, respectful, and wanting the best of America and for the greater good? So as the Trump campaign continues to roll, and yes, I'm sure we are going to see it continue to roll to what most people say he will be the primary candidate, or he will be the Republican candidate for the general election. How far will Scott go in his defense, continued support, and willingness to adhere to a man that continues to sling a lot of mud, a lot of innuendo, and disparaging remarks to Nikki Haley? Nikki Haley's fundraising surges despite the poll showing that she has a 30-point deficit to Donald Trump. Nikki Haley, who has vowed to stay in the fight beyond South Carolina primary, beyond Super Tuesday, has shown a significant fundraising coup, if you will. Last month, the former South Carolina governor's campaign pulled in $9.8 million, and the super PAC that is supporting and very much pro-Haley has also raised an additional $5.8 million. And a lot of these donations are thanks to people pledging and donating over $100,000 to $500,000. Now, of course, the Trump camp will tell you that, and Fox News and other major stream media sources will say, oh, this is a bunch of Democrats trying to bolster her, or, these are independents. Well, what if it is? One thing is for certain, Nikki Haley is going against unsurmountable odds. Let's admit it, she is. But one thing is for certain, she's in it for the fight. And one of the things that Governor Haley continues to state is that she is doing this to save the Republican Party, to provide another voice, a voice of reason, a voice that can unite those of us that are independent, those of us that are moderates, and even disenfranchised Democrats that might be more left of center. So with all of this, with this surge, and yes, Trump has outfunded her in January, but he's also overspending because a lot of his contributions are going towards legal bills. And even Lara Trump, his daughter-in-law, was certain that the RNC will be assisting with the legal bills and legal fines of Donald Trump, which, for those of us that are out there and maybe contributing to RNC, maybe that should be a big question mark as to how is this supporting the Republican Party. But let's go back to Nikki Haley. Nikki, who has vowed at her town hall on Fox the other night that she is staying in it for the long haul, that so long as she is capable of shedding light on policies and being a beacon of hope for those that are disenfranchised by the current trend that is happening in the Republican Party, then kudos to her. Now, Trump is not at all fazed by Nikki Haley's continued financial support and also her staying in. But one thing is for certain, Nikki Haley has a base, and that base seems to be fortifying behind her. And that base are the anti-Trumpers, the never-Trumpers, but also maybe those like so many people I know that are really just fatigued, the Trump fatigue. So Nikki Haley, the only female in there, the only Republican primary candidate that's willing to take the fight, she is vowing that she's staying in. And though Trump is 30 points favored in South Carolina and most likely will get all of the delegates or the sufficient amount of delegates in order to win the primary, he's hopeful by mid-March, but most likely by end of March. The real question is for former U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley, former Governor Nikki Haley, presidential candidate, what happens after that? What is the bigger looming question? Is Nikki staying in to not only see it that if she garners enough independent, non-party affiliated, moderate Republicans, moderate Democrats behind her to then jump from Republican ticket to, let's say, no labels? Because no labels is on all of the state ballots. No labels is an actual party. Now let's recap. No labels was created to distance the craziness that is the extremes of both parties, because it is. The extremists and extremism of both parties has lost their minds in a way. We have the MAGAs, we have the MAGA Trump force, if you will, the troops for Trump, things like that. But then you also have this progressive left that's just the wokeism, the political identification politics and such that is furthering fraying the communities, fraying our country, fraying relationships and ability to govern. So the real question is, what is the game after Trump gets the delegates? Because unless something cataclysmic happens and Trump is no longer the candidate or drops out, and let's face it, the only way that's going to happen is if he's convicted and taken to prison. And, Trump will continue. He'll continue campaigning. He'll continue trying to be president for a second time. What is the end game? Because she did declare that she is not looking to be a vice president. So I, for one, am thrilled to watch her campaign continue, because I think it does shed an important light and hope for many young women who want to go in leadership and many people that are feeling like they are not represented. Now, do I agree with everything Nikki's stances are on certain policies? Absolutely not. However, I will say, as a woman, I sure as hell am impressed that she's willing to stand toe and toe and stay in the fray. And even without her husband by her side, who is deployed in Africa serving our country, You know what? I applaud you. And obviously her funders, those donors also support what she is saying. So we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to turn to the Democratic candidate, President Biden, and his efforts for his reelection bid.
Taking a trip in the next 12 months? Airlines are under tremendous pressure and they're practically giving away their unsold seats. Like every crisis, this one will end too. But right now is the best time to take advantage of giveaway ticket prices on their unsold seats. We're not allowed to publish these low fares online. The only way to get these rock bottom giveaway prices is to call. So phone low-cost airlines now for airline ticket prices you may never see again.
Hi, folks. Robert Quigley here, America's Independent, Washington, D.C. We're on the road to the White House. Today, how do we reset government? We are going to help millions of families and thousands of communities across this great land become self-sustainable and self-supporting. It lowers the demand for government services. It will increase tax revenue, and it will lower everybody's taxes. The cradle-to-grave bill paying must be blunted. We must degrowth to sustainable modes of living. Infinite systems on a finite planet is suicidal. Team Quigley's focus will be on eliminating homelessness, poverty, hunger, and incarceration. The current government focus on the rich is wrong. Go to RobertQuigleyForPresident.com, find the donor box button. Team America needs your spare change. Join, spread the word, and together we will make America work for everybody.
Paid for and approved by the Robert Quigley for President campaign.
Will Biden's Gaza stance hurt him in 2024? Michigan is the first test for the Biden administration in testing the waters to see how will his reelection bid go. The Democratic Party faces internal strife over President Biden's support for Israel during the Gaza conflict, with discontent boiling over in Michigan ahead of its primary election. Michigan's early primary, coupled with its sizable Arab American population and progressive student demographics, has elevated the significance of this unrest. Frustration with Biden's stance on Gaza has spread beyond Arab American communities to include college campuses and other parts of the state. And also, it is spearheaded by Representative Tlaib. Because recall, she is the one saying that everybody needs to say no to Biden. We are not voting for him. And so there's even loud voice within the progressive squad, if you will, of the House of Representatives. The uncommitted movement urges voters to cast ballots against Biden in the primary, signaling disapproval of his Israeli policy. While there's uncertainty about the movement's impact, concerns linger among Democratic leaders that it could weaken Biden's support base, potentially jeopardizing Michigan's vote in the general election. Governor Gretchen Whitmer and other prominent Democrats warned that any diversion of votes away from Biden increases the risk of a Trump presidency. Despite efforts by the Biden campaign to address concerns within Michigan's Arab American communities, opposition to Biden's Israel policy remains strong. Young voters, including those with no direct ties to the Middle East, expressed solidarity with Palestinians and criticized Biden's alignment with Israel. Their activism threatens to erode Biden's support among key demographics crucial for Democratic victories in Michigan. The uncommitted movement aims to pressure Biden into altering his stance on the Gaza conflict, reflecting a broader shift in Democratic priorities towards foreign policy issues. While Biden's campaign emphasizes his achievements on domestic and social issues, such as job creation and sorry, I'm going to laugh, reproductive rights, discontent persists over his foreign policy decisions. The movement's organizers aim to secure a substantial number of uncommitted votes in the primary, potentially influencing Biden's approach to the Israel-Palestine conflict. However, the movement's effectiveness hinges on its ability to resonate beyond specific communities and garner broader support across Michigan's electorate. Now, let's hold on a minute. Let's get to realities. They're talking about the Democratic primary, which, let's face it, the DNC had long ago basically anointed Biden as their candidate, that there were not going to be any debates. They were not going to acknowledge any other primary candidates. Hello, RFK. Anybody remember? That's why he went independent. They refused to acknowledge any other candidates. But what this really is kind of similar to what happened in, I think it was Nevada's primary, with Haley, the none of the above, uncommitted, because they're trying to force Biden's hand. Now, I, for one, after the horrific events of October 7th and that deplorable attack by Hamas on Israeli citizens and the killing, murdering, raping of women and children and men, I was actually very proud of President Biden in his denouncing of that evil that occurred, because let's face it, we haven't seen something of that magnitude since 9/11, which maybe that is part of the reason why these college kids are not realizing the effect of terrorist nations imploding or pushing their annihilations on another country. But another reality check, because nobody's really looking at this as a primary. Biden is gearing up for his general election. So yes, there is a concern that Arab Americans that are key to a swing state, and that is it. Michigan is a swing state. It teeters, literally. Is it going to be Trump? Is it going to be Biden? Is it going to be Trump? Is it going to be Biden? And Michigan, because it just edged up and voted for Biden, was one of the key states that allowed Biden to win the presidential election of 2020. So yes, the DNC are mobilizing efforts in Michigan, and they are specifically advocating towards the Arab American communities and this uncommitted movement. But Biden himself is not scheduled to visit Michigan before the primary. He's putting his sights and engagements in California with Super Tuesday around the corner. So the rallies held by organizers in Michigan underscores a growing discontent with segments of the Democratic base. But it also sheds light on how the Democratic Party has moved to where it once was the party of the middle class family, of the workers, of the ability to work and stuff. And then they shifted since Obama's first election. It shifted to that of party politics, to identification, to race, nationalism, things of that nature, and ignoring what was traditionally a Democratic base. So the real question is Biden going to cave? And let's face it, Biden's not exactly the most stalwart, person when it comes to standing ground and maintaining his thing. He has been known to throw a couple of barbs, rattle the cage, and then all of a sudden give in. But that is going to be the real question. Does Biden give into this uncommitted rally headed by Tlaib and state, you know what? We're no longer in support of Israel, a longtime ally and the truest ally and necessary ally in a very unsettled Middle East. Time will tell, especially as the general election comes along. And speaking of primaries, there is a primary, and we talked about it a little bit before, and that is South Carolina. South Carolina is having their primary on February 25th. The Republican presidential primary pits Nikki Haley against Donald Trump in a highly anticipated showdown, marking the first head-to-head contest between the two since the New Hampshire primary. Despite Haley's strong ties to the state as a former governor, a very successful former governor, and a Tea Party governor, I think that needs to be stated because people like to throw that Nikki Haley's a liberal and a Democrat and she's just faking being a Republican. She actually was a Tea Party governor. But this is the first time that Nikki and Donald are head-to-head. And Nikki has ramped up the negative ads or the negative commentary on Trump. And one thing's for certain. She is hitting home on some of her attacks. I mean, I personally wish she was going back to her policies and maybe gearing her campaign to women. I mean, let's face it, she is a consensus builder. When she was first, let's look at the Nikki of the first debates versus Nikki now. She was talking about consensus building, talking about, even though she is pro-life and anti-abortion, that she does have empathy for those that have to make the choice of abortion. And she understands the right to choose, that someone may have that right to choose. It may not be for her, good for you, not for me, type of thing. But she was the one that, honestly, this Roe v. Wade fight would not be able to stick with her. She is also a candidate that can appeal to women, especially those suburban, educated white women that Trump really turns off. He is, he's a misogynistic pig. He always has been, and he is, and it's getting worse. And yes, Donald Jr. could come after me as well, but he's not, that apple didn't fall far from the tree either. And regardless of the stance, it is going to be a primary battle. Yes, the polls show that Donald Trump is 30 points ahead. And for many of us, we are enjoying the fact that there is a choice. With that being said, South Carolina is traditionally a huge indicator of the Republican nominee, with nearly every primary winner since Ronald Reagan in 1980 securing the party's nomination. And despite Haley being a highly popular and successful governor in South Carolina, Trump's dominance in the state's previous primary, their electoral performance, offer clues for Saturday's contest. Haley's strongest showings historically align with Democratic-leaning areas, suggesting that her path to victory may involve winning big in these regions while remaining competitive in Republican strongholds. Meanwhile, early voting numbers and turnout will play a significant role in shaping the outcome, with pre-election day votes likely to be pivotal in determining the winner. And again, as we discussed in the last segment, the real issue or the real eyes are going to be, what does Nikki Haley, candidate, do after the delegates are all won by Trump, if that is the case, because that is presumptively what everybody is expecting. What is she doing? What is her goal? Because one thing that is certain, just like DeSantis, who has an eye on 2028, her hopes also will be probably having enough power or enough movement for the 2028 presidential candidacy. So once again, we are now in the throes, really, of Biden and Trump are only one-termers. And the reality is this is not about the next 4 years. This is really setting us up for what happens 40 years from now. Who's going to be the candidate on both sides? But that is something that we can discuss at another time. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with some breaking news about hacking.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Leaked documents expose China's shadowy world of hacking operations. A recent leak of documents has shed light on the clandestine operations of Chinese hacking firms, with one company, iSoon, offering a range of hacking services to customers in China and abroad. These services detailed in the leaked documents, including accessing private websites, running disinformation campaigns, and obtaining personal information from social media platforms. The leak provides a rare glimpse into China's state-sponsored hacking, efforts, which target foreign governments, telecommunications firms, and even domestic entities. The leaked files outline an 8-year campaign by iSoon to infiltrate databases and intercept communications in countries across Asia, including South Korea, Taiwan, and India. Additionally, the documents reveal efforts to monitor ethnic minorities within China and target online gambling companies. Cybersecurity experts believe the leaked materials to be authentic, providing valuable insights into China's expansive hacking operations. iSoon's activities are reportedly sponsored by various Chinese government entities, including the Ministry of State Security, the People's Liberation Army, and China's National Police. While some operations focus on overseas targets, others involve domestic surveillance of Chinese citizens. This revelation underscores China's willingness to enlist private contractors in the cyber espionage efforts, despite international efforts to curb such activities. The leak also highlights the challenges posed by China's decentralized approach to hacking, with multiple contractors operating independently and occasionally engaging in reckless or amateurish behavior. However, experts warn that China's hacking capabilities continue to evolve, with recent efforts targeting critical infrastructure in the United States and elsewhere. As policymakers grapple with the growing threat posed by Chinese cyber attacks, the leaked documents serve as a stark reminder for the need for vigilance in cyberspace. Trump and the fraud trial. So from hacking to Trump. I know, quite a stretch. New York Judge Arthur F. Engoron delivered a significant blow to Donald J. Trump in a civil fraud case in finding him liable for conspiring to manipulate his net worth. The judge imposed a penalty of nearly $355 million plus $100 million of interest. That was unpaid interest, potentially wiping out Trump's cash reserves. Engoron's ruling also bars Trump from holding top positions at any New York company for 3 years and imposes a 2-year ban on his 2 adult sons, Eric and Donald Jr., along with $5 million fines each. Trump, of course, plans to appeal this financial penalty, but must either pay up or secure a bond within 30 days. Engoron's decision also extends the appointment of an independent monitor at the Trump Organization for 3 years with strengthened oversight powers. Despite Trump's dismissal of the ruling and his intention to challenge it, the penalties could significantly affect his business operations and financial standing. And let's remember, this is all started with Attorney General Letitia James, who campaigned on bringing Trump down. And this was a civil case. This is not a criminal case. So for those of you who get confused, this is not criminal. This is civil. So you do not have a beyond a reasonable doubt finding like a criminal case. This is a civil case, which is a preponderance of the evidence. So basically, what did the evidence lie? And there was no evidence really presented because Judge Engoron just basically said, you know what? I find Trump to have committed fraud based on the four corners of the complaint that was filed by Attorney General Letitia James. Letitia James now is also threatening and pushing without proper notification, without proper motions, to take one of Trump's business holdings or his real estate holdings to securing and paying of this fine. Now, this ruling is a political witch hunt. Everybody knows it. We even have the governor of New York State going out there after this ruling, stating that this is, that other real estate investment holding companies and construction companies and business owners and lending companies should not worry. They are not going to be they have no fear of retribution of this archaic law that was on the books of New York State, where there is no victim. The banks themselves have stated that they willingly, after they did their own due diligence, lent the money to Trump. They not only made hundreds of millions of dollars on the interest payment that Trump paid back all of this, and they would be more than willing to go again and lend him more money. Now, this impact is now being felt because you have the likes of Grant Cardone, billionaire real estate investor, who was just recently interviewed on Fox, stating that for 40 years he had been wanting to get into the New York real estate market, and he was about to start doing that, and that the prospecting and the capital that he provides, that after this ruling, he's like, hell no. He is not going into New York because of the potential of this. Because what has happened is this is a nasty slope. It is beyond slippery. We're talking, this is a avalanche of snow coming down, an avalanche down this slope, because this case has now opened the door for New York attorney generals to turn their sights on anyone who they do not wish to further have business or political base in New York State. You also have Mr. Wonderful, the Shark, Kevin O'Leary, who stated that he will no longer do any more business in New York based on this. Regardless of your political foothold, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're an independent, whether you're a Republican, the bottom line is this is a glaring problem and huge red flag for any capital investor, real estate holding company. Because if the whole point, and I am not an expert in this, but Kevin O'Leary and Grant Cardone explain it very well, that when you invest and build a building, you're not only valuating on its current market value, you're also showing prospective future revenue because of rents, because this is a long-held real estate. This isn't flipping a house. This is for long-term investment. But it's also the due diligence of a bank to do appraisals, to look at the financials, to look at comparables around. And so if, let's say, for instance, a real estate investor like Trump says, I want $4.5 billion loan, and these are my property holdings, these are my future revenues, these are all of these, the bank is going to look at everything and go, you know what, we don't think that you're worth $4.5 billion, but we're willing to do a $1.2 billion loan based on our own research. Now, this this trial or the legal process of this particular civil fraud case is not over. Trump's attorneys have petitioned the court, filed a motion for Judge Engoron to put a hold on the 30-day, a hold for 30 days to allow them time to be able to get the legal processes started. Because in New York, you must either pay the full penalty or obtain a bond. Now, Engoron basically shackled Trump's ability to obtain any lending in New York State, because in that judgment, he stated that he is barred from obtaining any new business loans. And let's face it, getting a surety bond on $455 million plus the continuing interest that is accruing against this while the appellate process goes through, that's going to be, let's face it, who's going to give him the money? Now, people are raising money. Yes, they're anticipating, there's an expectation that the RNC will raise funds to help pay for legal fees and potential fines. But the reality is this has far-reaching effect on businesses within New York State, not just New York City, New York State. So again, is this a political attack? In my opinion, yes. This was absolutely a political attack. This is bankrupting with the goal of bankrupting a man who basically stated that he had $400 million cash readily accessible. And this and the defamation lawsuit by Jeannie Carroll is over that amount. There are some serious legal challenges that will be confronted by the Trump team in the appellate process because it was a bench trial. But one could probably say this is an excessive fine. They went through there. But now you have Letitia, who is foaming at the mouth to be able to say that she repossessed one of Trump's buildings. There are some serious issues here. And the really biggest issue is the politicization of an attorney general who is solely going after an individual because she doesn't agree with his politics. This is very sad to see as a United States citizen, as an attorney, the objectification, the politicization, and the weaponization of a judicial system that is supposed to be blind. We're going to continue to follow this, but the repercussions are there. And when you had the likes of billionaire Grant Cardone and Kevin O'Leary stating that, businesses beware, investors beware, and they're stating they are not going to be investing any further and pulling whatever investments they have in capital out of New York. I mean, the likes of Florida, Texas are going to be reaping the benefits of this. I am Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Purple Politics, and I really look forward to seeing what we're going to be discussing in our next episode. And I wish you all a happy weekend, and for South Carolina, happy primary election day. We'll see you again real soon.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.
Hi, folks. Robert Quigley here, America's Independent, Washington, D.C. We're on the road to the White House. Tyrannies of the extreme must end. Americans firmly believe that the needs of the many must outweigh the needs of the few. What folks do in their bedrooms and the lifestyles they choose are protected legal rights. However, the other 99.9999% of Americans have a legal right to be free from those choices. Adolescence is tough, but it is a crime to interfere with the normal and usual course of nature, childhood development. Schools must operate within the parents' reasonable expectations. Most left-leaning folks are moderates. They want the government to have the backs of all Americans. Go to RobertQuigleyForPresident.com, find the donor box button.